Stay in attack formation.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the article compiling video on Star Wars Squadrons. Today I'll be taking all the big current articles available on Star Wars Squadrons across the internet, organizing all that knowledge, and delivering it to you in a nice digestible version. I'll be cross-referencing and piecing together new information given from official Star Wars Squadrons pages on EA.com and StarWars.com, along with articles from Polygon, GameInformer, and PCGamer. A large portion of these articles came from interviews they had with the creative director Ian Fraser. Links to each article will be posted in the description below. Ideally, every main point following will be new and/or wasn't clearly given from the trailers shown by EA previously. Big disclaimer, this video was in process of being worked on while all the on-hands previews came out. I want to keep that to a separate video on its own and not tie it into this. All that news will be in my next video. Anyway, moving along, let's begin with understanding a bit more about how Squadrons actually got started in development. During the production of the single-player campaign in Star Wars Battlefront 2 within Motive, they in particular had a great time with the space missions, which sparked up a pitch from developers James Clement, Pat Lalonde, and Steve Masters after a nostalgic conversation over the late 90s flight combat games. This pitch essentially asked the question, what would a modern-day Star Wars game focused entirely on the pilot experience look like? Which Ian Fraser excitedly wanted to help answer that question. Inspiration came from not only what they enjoyed working on from the Battlefront 2 single-player campaign and the community's positive reception to the Starfighter experiences, but also taking learnings from Starfighter Assault and the Rogue One VR mission from Battlefront 2. A lot of research and testing went into making sure Squadrons felt as authentic as possible for the players. Research included watching all Star Wars films and discussing what makes Star Wars space battles unique from other sci-fi franchises. They also replayed classic Star Wars flight games, including the most recent iteration within Star Wars Battlefront 2 Starfighter Assault, along with several other space games. A core group at Motive began working on the game design and art direction. The first thing that was built was a prototype of the 5v5 dogfight mode. This would all be the beginning of what was originally known as Project Incom, named after the Incom Corporation, which in Star Wars canon was the creator of the T-65 X-Wing. In the first prototypes, they built out the core flight model for Squadrons, which early on included the power management system that lets players divert power between lasers, engines, and/or shields. This is where they found it created the moment-to-moment tactical decisions players would need to make. The traditional display prototype was up in a week, while VR was running by the end of the second week, which really shows this game was developed from the ground up for both 2D and VR. Then began the TIE Fighter vs. X-Wing mayhem, just the fighter class ships used in PvP dogfight tests, which afterwards is when they discuss feedback on their experiences. This cycle of playtest and iteration continued as the team and scope of the game grew. Motive worked closely with Lucasfilm, animators, and mocap actors to land on an approach that fit what they saw in the films, while being believable in terms of how a real pilot would need to operate the controls to pull off complex maneuvers. Even actual cockpits were built for their mocap actors during their performances. The developers got down to the fine details to make sure what was built followed what ILM was able to build when they put together the cockpits in the movies. From lights with thin buttons to the screens being CRTs with appropriately curved monitors. Speaking of Lucasfilm, Orion Kellogg wanted to make sure that teamwork became an integral ingredient for Squadrons. He describes his thoughts from the Pilots Wanted interview on StarWars.com in this quote, saying, "We've known from the early days that teamwork is at the heart of Squadrons," Kellogg says. As you watch TIE fighters swarm your position or race to intercept Y-Wing bombers bearing down on your Imperial Star Destroyer, you'll need a good teammate by your side. The voice chat really makes you feel part of a squadron, and the ping system is invaluable and easy to use, even in single player, where you can ask your buddies to cover your tail. These moments of camaraderie really make the heroic ace moments stand out. What's more Star Wars than feeling like you saved the day for everyone? Moving on from the Squadron's backstory of development, The power management system is probably the one aspect about the game that has been further explained and detailed across these articles more than anything else. The three types of subsystems controlled under the power management mechanic are lasers, engines, and shields for the ships who have them. The more power that is diverted to a system, the more efficient that system is, while lowering power to a system will do the opposite. More power to engines give your ship more speed and evasiveness, more power to lasers allow your lasers to recharge faster, and more power to shields allow your shields to recharge faster. There will be two ways to manage your ship's power, being a basic system and a more advanced system. The basic system will allow a single button press to max out a selected system and press a button to go back to all systems balanced. The advanced system will allow individual management of each pip of power from one system to another. When maxing out these systems, they'll be able to perform abilities they wouldn't normally be able to without maximum power. On the reverse, when maxing out power to a system, the other systems will take much larger negatives, so players will need to be tactical about when they divert max power to a system. Maxing powered engines will provide a very powerful speed boost, similar to what Poe Dameron used in The Last Jedi. This speed boost is more of a straightforward speed and lessens the ship's capability to perform tight turns at that speed. The moment you stop maxing the ship's engines, the speed will slowly decay, not down to zero, but you will lose afterburner fuel for a time until the engine's power is fully back to divert and control as necessary. The mechanic of diverting power to engines and maximizing power to engines become a large part to limit the chance of creating the death loop situation seen in other flight combat games. The death loop is where two equally maneuverable and fast ships get stuck chasing each other's tails in a circle over and over until someone gives up or another player interrupts it. The variation in speed power diverting and when to max out the engines will allow options for players to break free of that death loop in interesting and tactical ways. If you divert max power to lasers, they'll automatically begin to overcharge. This makes the lasers much more powerful before reverting back to normal cannon fire. On top of that, because your lasers now have an overcharge, that means you'll have double the laser fire output since the overcharge extra bar is used first and then the regular charge laser fire. For the New Republic ships and the TIE Reaper, when they divert max power to shields, they'll get an overcharge similar to lasers. It charges up to an overcharge of 200% for both the front and back of your starfighter. Your shields can achieve 200% without overcharging, but only to the front or back half of your ship at the cost of putting the other half at 0%. Now for the ships that don't have shields, which include the TIE Fighter, TIE Interceptor, and TIE Bomber. Their power systems have a rapid power converter. This allows diverting power back and forth between engines and lasers much faster than other starfighters that also need to manage power for their shields. Every ship, on the other hand, has hull integrity, which drops from 100 to 0. Although your starfighter's health will not automatically regenerate like shields, there are multiple ways to repair your starfighter. Astromechs and repair systems are components starfighters can take to restore some of their hull. If you don't want to equip those components, you can also decide to take a detour to your flagship's hangar, which will fully repair your starfighter. If you don't want to take that pit stop, if you have a wingmate flying a support ship, they can help restore your hull as well. On top of maintaining your hull, you'll also want to resupply the components you've equipped that have limited ammo. There are two ways to do this, very similar to repairing your hull that we've already talked about. One is to fly under an allied frigate, cruiser, or into a capital ship's hangar. The other is back to the support class, helping you restock on the go. In terms of aiming and firing your lasers directly, we got a bit more clarification on a few aspects of that as well. Even though we don't see an aiming reticle in the trailers, there will be one, but not a leading reticle. You'll need to lead your target appropriately, where the reticle will change color to let you know when you're going to hit them, but you have to find that spot yourself. The game won't just give it to you. The main guns are not gimbaled at all. There is a convergence point to them. Lasers converge on a certain point in space depending on where you are aiming and shooting at. There are a couple of weapons that are gimbaled, but most things in Squadrons are fixed, and then they're changing their aim points based on where the laser emitters are. For those not familiar with the term gimbaled, it means the weapon isn't fixed to the ship's rotation. Basically, the guns can aim slightly independently from the direction of the ship and without needing to line up your reticle as much as you would with fixed weapons. Customization is the final, large section of information we received in these articles. A couple of game-wide settings we will have in-game to help customize the experience was revealed in the PCGamer article. While not seen in the trailers, there will be an in-game HUD along with the cockpit readouts, but there will be an option to turn that HUD off and rely solely on the cockpit. This can give players that full immersive experience to feel like they're a pilot directly using only the cockpit readouts, but this can also be a much more challenging way to play. Cosmetic customizations seen in the gameplay trailer showed the ability to give the ships you fly your favorite paint jobs and deck out their interiors with all types of accessories. There is also an option in the settings to turn all of that off. When you have that setting for no cosmetics, every ship you see will look like its canonical version, along with turning off accessories you may have decorated your interior with. Although if your opponents still have cosmetics visible, then they can still see your exterior paint jobs even though you have turned cosmetic visibility off from your point of view. For the in-game controls, both for console controllers and keyboard and mouse setups, there are presets, but also full button and stick remapping for controller players on top of the normal remapping for PC. Components are going to be the largest part of customizing your starfighters. Every ship has 7 component slots, which are primary weapons, 2 auxiliary slots, countermeasures, hull, shields if the ship has shields, and engines. Just like shields not being able to be equipped to every starfighter, it is also assumed not every type of component per slot will be available for every ship. Even with that in mind, there is still a wide array of options per starfighter to allow you to customize to the needs of you and your squadron. A few examples of given components were the beam cannon, which shoots an incredibly powerful beam weapon dead ahead but at the cost of your ship's maneuverability, so make sure you're on target before using that cannon. Reflex hull, which at the cost of hull value, decreasing the ship's health, it will automatically stealth the ship, hiding it from enemy radar after you get past a certain distance, which is great for surprise attacks. An unknown shield component name that works better against laser fire, but worse against missiles, torpedoes, and other munitions. Beyond all these customizations in-game, EA Motive has also stated that they're supporting HOTAS, hands-on throttle and stick, along with traditional joysticks on PC. They cannot say whether or not they'll have the same support for consoles yet. In terms of specific hardware, they also cannot say yes or no to anything for PC. A small point was made in the GameInformer article that you can play single player outside of the story mode against AI, or team up with your friends against AI if you don't want to play against other people or you just want to practice. The rewards won't be great, but you'll still get something. Alright everyone, that'll be it for now. Hopefully it was digestible enough for you. For those who have already read through these articles or will check them out afterwards, you may have noticed a small amount of things I omitted from this video, and that's because they're getting their own videos in the future. After I get through all of the hands-on preview information, I'll get back to the originally scheduled plan of the locations and deeper story dive videos. Until then, remember to hit that subscribe button and bell icon, along with following me on Twitter at SWSquadUp to know when those videos come out. I'll see you in the next Squad Up video.